7th time and the first in 5 years, the FIM International 6 Days of Enduro comes to France. The oldest off-road event on the calendar reaches its 96th edition in the southeastern Auvergne, Rhône-Alpes and Occitanie regions. The action for 2022 all gets underway in host city Le Puy-en-Velay. Riders have remarked on how technical the course will be. 5 days, over 200 kilometres, with some challenging link stages as well as 25 special tests to split the teams before the 26th final motocross test on day 6. Le Puy-Loud Airport is the launchpad for the 2022 FIM International 6 Days of Enduro, the site for a paddock of around 600 amateur and professional riders contesting the 96th edition of the world's oldest off-road competition. At elite level, national teams chase 3 World Championship titles, the Women's, Junior and World Trophy. Last year in Italy, both men's golds were locked out by the hosts, but they travelled to France much depleted. Davide Guarneri out with a broken vertebra in his neck. Matteo Cavallo ruled out by his factory's decision not to travel. Yes, the team is a little different because only Thomas and I rode last year. Salvini and Bernardini joined this year. It's Bernardini's first 6 days, but I nonetheless think we arrive here with a good team. Italy's win on home soil relieved the USA of the World Trophy. They won in 2016 and 2019. Caleb Russell is the only rider back this season who lined up in both of those successes, but he only recently made a return after a 2-year retirement from the sport.
My expectations aren't as high as they once would be, but I'm looking to be super competitive, be up there, and just stay consistent and keep it on 2 wheels and help lead these guys to the top of the leaderboards for sure.
France have been the most successful nation in the last 2 decades of enduro, with no less than 8 world trophies in that spell. Only Christophe Charlier remains from their last winning outfit when the hosts proved 5 years ago they know what it takes to lift their game on home soil. Still chasing their first title, Spain have switched their 4th man from last year, Cristobal Guerrero, to team manager in a new look outfit, with Bernat Cortés coming in to replace him in their rider roster. I think it's a very complete team, and we can compete for great things. Spain has finished 2nd place twice, we've been 3rd as well, so this year we intend to fight to finish as high as possible. Favourites when the team declarations first came in, Great Britain have lost the services of 2021 world champion Brad Freeman, who suffered a fractured sternum in Slovakia a month ago. His place is taken by junior Jed Etchells.
Obviously Jed's a great rider and we're going to try and get the win anyway, but yeah, with Brad it was a super strong team, a full GP senior team, and yeah, there was a lot of pressure with that team, I think, because on paper we're kind of one of the favourites to win it, but yes, it's knocked a little bit of pressure off, but we're all still going out there to try and win.
The Junior Trophy, always the most difficult to predict. In 2022, it's no exception with another high rider turnover. Reigning champions Italy, for example, track not one of their 2021 title winners. USA, though, have managed to keep some continuity, and after misfortune last year, they'll hope to become the 7th team in 7 years to win at under 23 level.
Last year, myself and Austin competed, and yeah, going into this year, we're a little bit more experienced, kind of know what to expect a little bit more. There's not as many nerves, and we know kind of where we sit, from previous years. So going into this year, we definitely have a lot more confidence, and yeah, I think overall we have a really strong team.
Only 3 different nations have ever won the Women's Trophy, and Australia have been the team to beat with 6 golds. During their winning streak, they made just a single team change, but this year they've been forced into 2, with Tyler Jones suffering visa issues. Meanwhile, Emily Karlsson switches allegiance from Sweden, with whom she rode as recently as 2019.
I lived in Australia for the last 10 years, and it's more like my home at the moment. And then I got dual passports now and citizenship. So the opportunity came up and I got really excited to get asked to represent Australia instead. So when they asked me, I was happy to say yes.
For Australia to return to the top step, they'll have to get through Brandy Richards, who won all 28 tests last year, and back-to-back winners, the USA.
This year we have Corey Steed, which she's new. She hasn't raced ISDE yet, but I'm super hopeful for her. She's extremely fast back in the States. She's competing in GNCC and the US Sprint Enduros, so she's been preparing with her sprints and everything, and she has quite a bit of speed, so I'm super excited to see how she does. And then we also have Rachel Gudish returning, which she was super solid last year and super consistent, so I think we have such a great solid team, and I think we'll do extremely well.
In total, 23 different countries are represented in 2022. They showed off their national colours for the first time in the traditional parade, in this case from the Old Town South to the Place du Breuil, the region's administrative centre. With this historic architecture as the backdrop, the perpetual trophies were handed in, ready to be awarded for a 96th time, and the FIM International 6 Days of Enduro were declared open once again.
Je vais déclarer les 96 séjours d'enduro ouverts. Merci, Puy-en-Velay.
Just 12 kilometres west from the city centre, the Puy-Loud Airport provided the location for a paddock of 541 riders, the starting point for each day of competition. Starting order is determined based on world rankings established in Italy last year, with the first teams out benefiting from the cleanest track surface. The first route of the week, tackled on the opening 2 days, looped around the west of the département of Haute-Loire before facing the mythical beast of Gévaudan in Sorgues and returning to the paddock after 286 kilometres on the bike. The first principle of the 6 days of enduro is to make it home intact and on time. Retirements and big penalties gradually ruling teams out of contention for the title over the course of the week. The first victim was Abel Carrero, who suffered an incident before Special Test 4, costing him and Portugal over half a minute in penalties. They spent the rest of the event trying to recover from 21st and last. At the top of the table in the World Trophy, a close-fought start to the week with the top 5 nations separated by less than a minute. France ran 5th last year before 2 retirements on the penultimate day ruled them out of contention. They slotted into the same position on their first day back as hosts, Hugo Blanchou giving them something to cheer as third fastest through the 5th test after a tough start to the morning. The USA finished day 1 in 4th, but just 26 seconds from the leaders. The return of Caleb Russell was somewhat overshadowed by the performance of Dante Oliveira, who in his first year on the senior team after riding at junior level last year was fastest American on each of the opening 3 days. With 2 of the top 6 in the Enduro World Championship standings in Nathan Watson and Steve Holcomb, Great Britain were already rated among the favourites to claim their first title since 1953. And with both of them among the lead quintet in the scratch times on the opening day, despite coming from behind in the starting order, Brits moved straight into the provisional medal positions. Reigning champions Italy could have started the week back on top, but for an underwhelming day for Alex Salvini. The 36-year-old is a veteran of Italy's 2007 title-winning side, was the E2 World Champion in 2013, but he missed last year's title success. His nation's chances of claiming back-to-back crowns would depend on his improvement as the competition went on. He was slower even than debutant Samuele Bernardini on day 1. Josep Garcia was again the key man for Spain, leading their timesheets as he has since his debut senior appearance in France 5 years ago. He and Andrea Verona finished first and second in scratch in 2021. Garcia finished 24 seconds ahead of the 2022 Enduro 1 world champion on day 1 here to provide the bulk of an early lead for his side. It's been a great day for all of us because we've all found a good rhythm. For me personally, everything's been great. No falls, good times, and leading the scratch, so I'm very happy. But there's still a long way to go, so we have to focus to the finish. That's all, day 2 tomorrow. In a key change to the regulations, all 4 riders' times count towards the standings, so any weak links or retirements were severely punished, particularly in such a competitive contest as the World Trophy in 2022. There were only 4 retirements in the whole of the 2021 Junior Trophy. There were 3 just on the opening day this season, including 2 of the teams that made the podium last year. Sweden and France each provided 2 of the top 10 in the scratch times, but their third men, Albin Norbin and Antoine Alix, never even made it out of the first test, both retiring ironically in the same place with mechanical difficulties. The USA's Cody Barnes made it only slightly further before his retirement that ended the USA's hopes.
After cross test 1, my bike had an electronic issue and I was unable to resolve it in the time needed to get to time check number 1. So I houred out today, and yeah, that's a wrap on my 2022 ISDE. So very big bummer, but nonetheless I'm very honored to just be one of the riders selected to come here.
Those 3 big name retirements meant that what might have been a midfield battle became a race for the podium. 5 nations were separated by less than a minute from 4th place down after the opening 5 tests. Spain's all-new lineup put in a solid debut in 6th, ahead of the likes of Australia and New Zealand, Albert Fontava leading their times as he would on 5 of the 6 days of competition. And the Iberian trio enjoyed a week-long scrap with the Czech Republic over 5th. Having finished 9th last year, the Czechs also tracked a totally new trio in 2022, and it proved a solid lineup for them, with very little to split the teammates during the week. Twice hosts of the 6 days of Enduro in 2007 and 2018, Chile have never won in any of the 3 World Trophy classes, but they were optimistic of their chances of claiming a surprise podium place in the junior category in 2022 after finishing 4th last year. An unchanged trio held the same position on day 1 in France. Great Britain, though, sat almost a minute clear in the last of the podium positions, with their junior trio proving evenly matched and consistent throughout the week. They tracked one of Enduro's brightest prospects in Youth World Championship leader Harry Edmondson. Finland have a strong heritage in the 6 days of Enduro, dominating the World Trophy in the late 1990s, but their last junior trophy dates back to 2004, a team that then graduated to win the World Trophy in 2011, Finland's last top-flight success. There's clearly young talent coming out of Finland again now, and Roni Kaitanen is leading the vanguard. But Italy took advantage of their strong starting position as the defending junior trophy champions and claimed what would prove a decisive day 1 lead of 1.5 minutes over the Finns. Former European 250 motocross champion Morgan Lesiado proved the key man, finishing fastest of the Azzurri on the opening 2 days of his debut ISDE. Despite the efforts of Zachary Pichon, the newly crowned junior world champion, over 5 minutes faster than the next best junior over the week, retirement in the first special test had ended France's home hopes. Sizable gaps opened between the majority of the 8 teams in the Women's Trophy right from the start, with 2, Germany and Sweden, having a disastrous opening day. The Swedes, who last made the podium back in 2015, saw their chances of returning to the top 3 all but ended with a 10-minute time penalty for their most experienced rider, 7-time Swedish champion Hanna Berzelius. With Gemma Wilson stepping down after the last visit to France, then Taylor Jones missing out due to visa issues, Jessica Gardner is the only remaining member of the Australian team that won the Women's World Trophy consecutively between 2013 and 2018. Ebony Nielsen was a late call-up to the team, and her struggles to acclimatise to the 6 days on her debut left Australia 4th behind France early on. An unchanged lineup for Great Britain in 2022. The team that finished 3rd on their debut in 2019 and 2nd last year, they held the same position on day 1 in France. 2021 scratch winner Brandy Richards picked up where she left off last year by completing another full house of test wins on day 1 in France to pull over a minute clear of anyone else in 2022. And she was ably supported by Corey Steed on her debut as the USA built a 4-minute lead in just 5 tests. Hosts France sat 3rd after the opening day, their margin over Australia the smallest between any 2 teams. That's where the battle was throughout the week in the Women's Trophy. Second day on the same course saw gaps finally start to open between the top 5 teams in the World Trophy, who had all initially been separated by less than a minute. A crash in the second special test and a sprained ankle didn't help Lane Michael on day 2 as the American quartet finished only 5th fastest. There was some consolation though as Dante Oliveira became the first rider to lower the colours of Josep Garcia by taking the day's first special. France beat the USA for 4th on day 2 but remained behind them overall and saw their gap to the podium places go up from half a minute to almost 2. Léo Le Carré, newly promoted from the junior team with whom he took silver in 2021, took over briefly as his team's fastest man from Hugo Blanjou. Leaders after the opening day, Spain saw their slender advantage overhauled as they tumbled back to 3rd. Josep Garcia was again fastest in scratch, but with a reduced margin over the rest, and Bernat Cortés, who rode so well at junior level for Spain last year, finished day 2 slowest of any of the riders representing the top 5 teams. Gaining 27 seconds on Spain, Italy passed them for 2nd. Their star man, Andrea Verona, though, lacked back up further down the order with Samuele Bernardini in only his 2nd Enduro campaign, in particular finding the going somewhat tougher, repeating the now somewhat rougher terrain. Taking full advantage of a weaker day for Spain and Italy, Great Britain blasted from 3rd to 1st and into an 84-second lead. Almost 2 minutes faster than previous leaders Spain, the British quartet were all in the top 12 in the day's times. Nathan Watson 2nd fastest and only 21 seconds behind individual star Garcia.
For me personally, I stayed consistent all day and doing some good times. Yeah, it was definitely a better start for us because we started at the front more close with all the top guys, so it was kind of more equal. And yeah, really happy to hear that Great Britain have took the overall lead for the week for the World Trophy. So yeah, super happy with that, and hopefully the boys can all keep it together and try and bring the trophy home.
Fastest by 1 minute 35 seconds on day 2. Great Britain's slowest man was still faster than 2 of the Italians and 3 of the Spaniards, who could only manage 3rd. France could only pull back 4 seconds on the USA from 4th. Finland moved past Belgium for 8th with a third of the week completed. After an opening day marked by retirements in the Junior Trophy, another of the podium contenders dropped out of contention as Jeremias Ciele hit problems, costing Chile, who had sat 4th, an unassailable 45-minute margin. In the 3rd special, just after the start, maybe 200 metres, I had a mechanical failure in which the bike just suddenly stopped and wouldn't restart. I checked it over at the side of the special with my mechanic watching over me, and we managed to fix it and finish the special. But an 8-minute special took 40 minutes, and obviously I lost another 17 minutes in time penalties. But the main thing is we managed to fix it, so I can carry on tomorrow.
Después de eso penalicé, obviamente, cerca de 17 minutos. Pero lo importante es que logramos solucionar el problema y podemos seguir corriendo mañana.
A consistent team effort from Spain, who moved ahead of the Czech Republic for 5th position. And with Jaroslav Kalny struggling later in the week for the Czechs, that's how those positions remained. But there was movement in the pecking order elsewhere as Australia returned to form. 7th after the opening day, the men from Down Under making their first 6 days appearance since 2019 as a result of the global pandemic, climbed to 4th overall after finishing day 2 in 3rd. And with Corey McMahon much improved, they still held realistic podium aspirations. An excellent performance as well from Finland, who lost 93 seconds to Italy in the opening 5 specials, but impressively finished only 10 seconds slower than the leaders on the same course 2nd time around. In fact, Italy would have a tough task containing the Finns for the rest of the week. Unable to go with Ronnie Kaitanen, they dug in to defend their day 1 advantage, which they swelled by 10 seconds to 1 minute 43, a third of the way through the trip to France. Today has gone well again. We've managed to gain a little bit on Finland, which isn't bad because Rinaldi made a few mistakes. But anyway, we're all doing our best. I went a bit better today than yesterday, so I'm happy about that. And Spano always goes well. 4 days still to go. The race is long, but we'll focus now and try to manage that advantage. That's the target from here.
a gestire il vantaggio, ma adesso l'obiettivo è ancora di spingere.
An important day for Australia's juniors, making up over a minute on Great Britain and reducing the gap to the podium places to just over 40 seconds. Meanwhile, with the Czech Republic now overhauled by Spain, their focus turned to defending against New Zealand for 6th overall. Fifth place was the only position that changed hands on day 2 in the Women's Trophy. Anna Berzelius returning to form for Sweden and Marie-Claude Boudreau hitting problems for Canada. The two teams exchanged places in the pecking order. Australia's fastest woman, 5th in scratch at the end of the week, Jessica Gardner helped her team back into contention for the podium places on day 2 by making up 48 seconds on the fastest French representative. The gap to 3rd place halved. A minute faster than Gardner though, Jane Daniels, the 2019 and 20 world champion, continued to pull Great Britain into an ever more comfortable 2nd place. And Brandon Richards, in turn, was over a minute per day faster than her nearest rival as she set the USA up for a 3rd consecutive victory, backed up capably by Corey Steed, who went on to finish 2nd in scratch.
I didn't really know what to expect coming into this, but so far it's been an incredible event and I'm loving every day so far. It's definitely tough, but yeah, I want to just improve every day. I had a little bit of a rough day today, so hopefully we can make up on that and have a better day tomorrow.
Sweden beat Spain on day 2, and the gap to them overall for 5th now sat at just over 40 seconds. Australia halved the gap to France and staked their claim for a place on the podium. A third of the week through the 96th ISDE, ahead of a new course to be broken in south into the region of Occitanie. Alongside their World, Junior and Women's Trophy outfits, Team USA bring no less than 7 teams with them to the 96th edition of the FIM International 6 Days of Enduro to compete in the club classes. These 21 riders have had to make it through the demanding AMA-sanctioned ISD qualifier series, but for some, the journey to the 6 days started back in January.
Competing in ISD for American riders is just a chance really to represent their country. I mean, they're here to represent the United States. It's an honor for those riders to be here.
The U.S., there's always many more riders that want to ride 6 days than we have spots. And so we have a qualifier series. We've had a qualifier series my whole life. And we try really hard to set up the qualifiers so that we send the correct riders.
Normally, it is 3 rounds on the East Coast and 3 rounds on the West Coast. Each round is 2 days of racing, and then we take their top 4 results and kind of have a point system and pick the top riders from each coast.
It was difficult. I've tried for a few years, but this past year I finally got in. I just started gaining more speed as the years went on.
You'll see 90% of our club riders in the top 100 club riders for the entire event. It's done a good job of sending over better and better riders.
Those who have made it through have a variety of motivations for competing at amateur level. For some, the target is to move up through the ranks and stake a claim for a place in the trophy teams of the future. Others are simply delighted to be a part of this unique event.
I came with my dad in 2013 to Sardinia, and it was awesome. I was looking up to all of the trophy riders, so it's a very cool experience to get to compete in it.
This is a pretty big thing for us. When I was young, I got to see all like the enduro 6-day riders when I was growing up, and it was something I always wanted to be a part of. And it's definitely a huge deal, right? Only 31 of us get to come over here for our country and get to race for Team USA and be a part of this is a pretty big deal for me, for sure. I'm super happy to be here.
It's an adventure every year. Every year's different, and I've got a lot of friends here, not just on Team USA, but I've made a lot of friends over the years, from a lot of countries. And so it's an adventure, it's a vacation. This year my goal was to come over here and just have a good time, visit with friends, and get to see another beautiful country, and that's pretty much how it's going.
With a huge band of around 150 volunteers behind them, Team USA's organisers recognise the effort required to bring the team to the ISDE and hope that commitment will help them to meet some big goals for the future.
we help organize everything. We organize the hotel, we organize team dinner, we organize the container. The riders ship everything to a group that helps out the AMA, and we load the shipping container, we process. Over the last couple of years, we've really elevated our presence and our speed at the ISDE. You know, I would really like for us to come to an event and sweep the entire event. That's our goal. We want to come, we want to win the World Trophy, we want to win the Women's, we want to win the Junior Trophy, and we want to win the club classes. Now, from more of working with the AMA and everything, I would love for the ISD to come back to the United States.
USA hasn't hosted the 6 days of Enduro since 1994. But with the stream of talent coming up through the ranks and the team's proven commitment to the event, there's little doubt that their targets could become a reality in the future. After a tiring first course, it was back to the trails in the southeast of France for another punishing 260-kilometre course on days 3 and 4. For the first time, the route crossed south into the region of Occitanie, specifically its département of Lozère, close to the Ardèche, passing the Lac de Naussac on another scenic journey. At the midweek point, the podium places in the World Trophy, so close fought on day 1, had settled down. The sole change on the third day was only for 4th, with France beating the USA for a second consecutive day, and this time by a 29-second margin. The hosts relied on the excellent form of Hugo Blancheux, 5th fastest on the week's scratch times. In the battle for second, and after losing their 23-second lead to Italy on day 2, Spain conceded another 32 seconds on day 3. The difficulty of generating a line from the front on a new course proved a handicap for Josep Garcia, who even suffered a rare crash into a tree and a left arm cut that required stitches. Marc Sams also had a tough day. The Iberian nation slipped 3 minutes behind the leaders. Italy then consolidated second, with Andrea Verona faster in the 3 of the 5 special tests and finishing day 3 fastest, the only rider sub 36 minutes on the course. But Great Britain continued to power ahead, opening up another 58 seconds to the reigning champions for an advantage of almost 2.5 minutes clear, with only 2 full days remaining. After a sluggish start to the week, only 21st on day 1, Jamie McCanney finished the week 9th, with Jed Etchells 12th.
To be riding with the top boys in the world really is good, and to be winning is a really good feeling. And now it's just doing what we're doing, stay consistent, don't make any mistakes, just be safe and bring home to the finish line and hopefully finish on the top step.
Italy and Spain continued to prove evenly matched, never more than half a minute separating them for second at the halfway mark. Meanwhile, despite passing the USA overall, France moved just 0.03 of a second ahead of the hosts, with that 4th place still up for grabs. Less than a minute separated the top 3 teams on day 3 in the Junior Trophy. Another 3rd place finish for Australia completed their turnaround from 7th and into the provisional podium places with a 45-second buffer over Great Britain. But there was no change at the front. Finland continuing to slip steadily further behind leaders Italy. Second fastest on each of the first 4 days of competition. They lost 10 seconds on day 2, 26 then on day 3. With so much ground lost in the opening 5 specials, that was proving unassailable. That 1.5 minute margin in Italy's favour from day 1, allowing them the luxury of extending their advantage only cautiously thereafter. They could even survive the occasional blip, including a slow start to day 3 for Enrico Rinaldi. An excellent recovery from Australia from 7th to a relatively comfortable 3rd at the halfway mark. Italy, meanwhile, had by now amassed a 2-minute lead over Finland, despite the Scandinavians' improved efforts on days 2 and 3. An action-packed day in the Women's Trophy, and particularly for Julia Calvo, who lost major ground as Spain finished bottom of the pile. When I went out in the first special, I noticed straight away that I was struggling to change gears. The clutch wasn't working. I remained without a working clutch until CH2, where I tried to repair it in the little time I had, but I couldn't, and I went another special without a clutch. Finally, in CH3, we managed to repair it, but I'd already lost too much ground, and I was caught by the club riders. A lot of dust, sand, everything. So in the end, I've lost almost 40 minutes. Sweden were 5.5 minutes faster than Spain on day 2, only 40 seconds behind heading into a new course, but Calvo's eventual retirement ensured they would move ahead of them into 5th. Hannah Berzelius contributed strongly to recover from her own difficulties on day 1. France also enjoyed a better day, beating Australia for 3rd and wiping out their gains from day 2, before extending their lead up to over a minute for the first time in the battle for the podium places. But the USA were clearly well clear of the rest in pure pace, beating Great Britain by a crushing 4 minutes on day 3, leaving 20 minutes separating the 3 teams in the podium places, with only 3rd place left to settle, barring incident.
First off, I'm having much more fun in France than I did in Italy, so less dust. I like the moisture in the ground. The transfers have been absolutely beautiful. Like, couldn't ask for a better race week, honestly. And then, of course, having the lead we do, which, I mean, I know you're talking to me, but largely it's my teammates. They're the ones carrying the team. But I'm doing all right. I'm pretty happy with my performance and just want to keep the momentum going.
Australia had slipped over a minute behind France for the first time, but that was still the closest battle in the Women's Trophy. At the back, 2 difficult days for Samantha Baumann of Germany left them still behind Spain in 8th, although the retirement of Julia Calvo promoted them to 7th, where they remained from there. Day 4 was one of retirements in the World Trophy, with Canada, Portugal, Venezuela, Austria, Poland, New Zealand and Australia all losing a rider. The men from Down Under were world champions in 2015 and 2018, but Daniel Milner was the only member of those 2 teams lining up for their return in 2022, and they were on the back foot from the start, stranded down in 7th. The retirement of Todd Waters with a dislocated shoulder on day 4 was later followed by the withdrawal of Josh Green with 2 broken bones in his hand, sustained on the penultimate day. '19 champions, the USA, also continued to struggle, as they could only finish 6th on day 4, conceding 6 minutes to the podium places with problems for Dante Oliveira.
A little bit of a difficult day. Started out with some bike problems that happened at the end of the day yesterday, so this morning I had to work on the bike and then had some more issues, so I had to pull over on the side of one of the first transfer and loosen up some stuff on the bike, and was able to make it through the rest of the day, but just right now just trying to finish the days and not really able to push the bike as hard as I can, so just trying to save the bike for the rest of the day 5 and day 6.
Benefiting from the USA's problems, Sweden moved up to within 2 minutes of the Americans, putting themselves in contention to snatch 5th overall. For them, 2016 Junior Trophy winner Mikael Persson finished the week 6th in scratch, fastest in E3. A loss of almost 2 minutes to Great Britain all but confirmed that Italy's reign was over. They also dropped 52 seconds to Spain in the battle for silver. Josep Garcia returned to winning ways after his incident-packed day 3, finishing 25 seconds clear of Andrea Verona as Spain propelled themselves back ahead, 2nd place, their best position since they'd led on day 1. The 3rd day in succession, Great Britain topped the timesheets. Their margin of 69 seconds put them within touching distance of the World Trophy. Now defending a 4-minute lead, they could afford to bring it home safely in the final 6 special tests.
Yeah, the spirits are high in Team GB. Everybody's doing their job, and all we can do is go out there and try our best, try and not make many mistakes, and it seems to be working. So we have a comfortable margin, but anything can happen. We're with machines, and anything can happen. So
just try and knock it down a peg tomorrow, I think, and try and bring it home.
Another change of position for second, with Spain again beating Italy. A difficult day for Dante Oliveira, but he made it back to Parc Fermé to keep the USA running, even if, having lost almost 3 minutes to Sweden on day 4, they now looked vulnerable in 5th overall. For the second consecutive day, less than a minute separated the 3 lead teams in the Junior Trophy. But there was no change in the pecking order, and the margins between all of the teams in the top 10 only increased further. Finland really needed to make up a minute on day 4 to give themselves a fighting chance, but instead they lost another 24 seconds and would now rely on mechanical problems for Italy. 2.5 minutes clear with only 1 full day of competition remaining. They now had a 3rd win in 3 completely different teams in the last 4 editions of the ISDE within their grasp. Finland had dug in impressively after a tough start to the week, while Australia, who sat down in 7th after day 1, were now over 3 minutes clear of Great Britain, who previously held 3rd spot. A dramatic day in the Women's World Trophy. It looked settled after day 3, the USA 11 minutes clear. The 2019 and 2021 champions were ruled out of contention for a 3rd consecutive gold following a retirement for their star rider, Brandy Richards.
Yeah, well, Brandy went down on the first test today, and it didn't seem anything, out of ordinary, just a crash, but I think she hit her head pretty well on that crash, and then also her ribs. And then she started to complain a little bit right after, and started to say like it hurts pretty bad.
The USA's retirement meant that Australia moved up into a podium position, even if their hopes of beating France were all but over. What was a fight for 3rd had now become a fight for 2nd, but the host trio all beat Australia's 2nd and 3rd women on day 4, enabling them to gain 1.5 minutes. France, winners between 2008 and 2012, would rely on problems for Great Britain, though, if they were to add to their silverware, because from 11 minutes down, they'd suddenly been gifted an 11-minute lead and sat on the verge of a first ever women's trophy. Jane Daniels assumed the scratch leadership as well. The USA story was certainly the most dramatic on day 4, but Germany too hit problems and remained temporarily behind the former leaders in 7th. Brandy Richards' withdrawal was a timely reminder just how perilous any team and lead can be with all-to-count regulations. The final full day of competition and the 3rd and final course. Over 271 kilometres for day 5, the riders headed out north towards 1980 venue Brioude, then followed the river Arzon back to the paddock just outside Le Puy-en-Velay for the final time. After 7 retirements on day 4, there were no more surprises on the decisive penultimate leg of competition, with the pecking order in the World Trophy unchanged. The biggest gains were made by Sweden, who, for the 2nd consecutive day, beat the USA for 5th, this time by 62 seconds, narrowing the gap between the two sides to less than a minute for the first time. Italy were only 5 seconds behind Spain at the end of day 4, but they conceded over 39 seconds to their direct rivals on day 5 with another 3rd place finish, leaving them with plenty of work to do in the final motocross test. With Josep Garcia headed by Andrea Verona in the day's scratch timings, albeit by just 0.04 of a second, Spain's gains came from the lower order of their team. Bernat Cortés, who struggled on the opening route of the week, beat no less than 3 of Italy's men on day 5. A strong 2nd place for the Spaniards as they restricted Great Britain to their smallest winning margin and got the closest anyone did to their quartet after day 1. But with a 4-minute advantage already on their account, this was a day to ease off the gas and play safe for an historic title.
Yeah, we spoke last night and we didn't want to change anything that we'd been doing all week. Just go out here today and just just do our normal thing and ride and race and try and do well. But it was quite a stressful day, being the last day, you know, thinking what could happen, and I think I lost a little bit of focus for that and was riding a little bit careful. But you know, we've all made it back to the Parc Fermé, and we have a comfortable gap for tomorrow. So yeah, just want to go out there tomorrow and have fun with the boys, and yeah, hopefully we can bring it home and make history.
A fourth successive day victory for Great Britain. The pre-event favourites had delivered in style. The gap between Spain and Italy remained the closest at 45 seconds, and second place in the World Trophy was the only podium position really up for grabs going into the final motocross test. In the Junior Trophy, New Zealand finished the week in style with 2 fifth-place finishes, enough to close on the Czech Republic for 6th, but not enough to pass them. James Scott was their fastest man on all 5 full days. Cautious leaders Italy were restricted to 3rd on day 5 as their rivals put in one final push to try and close the gap. Managing a 2.5-minute lead after 2 completed courses, reigning champions played it safe to bring their 3 riders home and retain the bulk of what looked an unassailable lead. Australia finished 2nd on day 5, their best result of a week in which their trio showed real signs of improvement. Kyron Bacon was 3rd fastest junior, and over 35 seconds faster than any of the Italians behind. The Tasmanian certainly impressed in his debut 6 days, and at just 20 years of age, he still has another few seasons to make a challenge for junior honours. Finland crashed out of the running in the Junior Trophy with a day 3 retirement last year. Their 2 men that did finish in Italy were all set for redemption in 2022, with a place on the podium within their reach. The Finns topped the timesheets on day 5 thanks to a solid through-the-order performance, but for their lowly ranking and 1.5 minutes lost on the opening day, they could have been serious contenders for the title. 45 seconds made back by Finland over Italy represented almost as much as the leaders had pulled out over them in the last 3. The gap still stood at the best part of 2 minutes and therefore looked beyond their reach. The rankings were unchanged in the Women's Trophy as well. A difficult start to the morning for Emily Carlson dropped Australia further back from France, so their remaining hopes of capturing 2nd were over. France's team posted similar times to one another all week, but they lacked a number 1 rider who could go with Jane Daniels, and that was their main weakness. But the women were the only trophy team able to provide a podium place for the hosts in 2022. Great Britain only sent a women's team for the first time in 2019. They finished 3rd in Portugal, 2nd in Italy last year, and were now within sight of gold with an unchanged trio in 2022. There were no signs of them easing up on day 5 though, as they finished 2.5 minutes clear of France, a similar winning margin to the previous day. Canada lost major ground on day 5, but nonetheless finished the day 5th, with Germany also hitting problems. Almost 6 minutes from 2nd to 3rd in the Women's Trophy, but those were the closest 2 teams in the standings, the world rankings seemingly settled. With the 5 full days of competition complete and only the 26th and final special test remaining, any margin of more than a minute was unlikely to be bridged, and the podium places, barring any major retirements, looked settled. The traditional motocross test kicks off the party at the end of a tough week, and this year that party came to the paddock just a few metres away from Le Puy-Loud Airport, a purpose-built flat grass track with berms and jumps for the riders to put on a show. As Jane Daniels sat over 2 minutes clear in scratch and the British trio almost 14 minutes ahead of France, only a real disaster could change the podium places in the Women's Trophy. There were no signs of upsets in the final test. Taking over to lead the USA timesheets after Brandy Richards' retirement, Corey Steed completed a successful debut at the ISDE with 2nd in scratch and a gate-to-flag win in the final test. Her sole remaining American teammate Rachel Guttish slotted into 3rd, with 27-year-old motocross specialist Shelby Turner of Canada settling in between them. The race's main interest was the scrap for fourth. Jane Daniels gradually losing ground to Guttish and slipping into the clutches of Spain star Mireia Badia. Daniels ceded the position, coming home fifth, but still comfortably fastest overall in scratch. And once Rosie Roud and Niamh Holmes had come over the line to complete their 26th and final rides of the week, Great Britain could celebrate, becoming only the fourth different nation to win the Women's World Trophy. A strong finish for the USA, who took first and third in the final test, second and sixth in the scratch times. Only the shock retirement of Brandy Richards held them back from more. Sweden outpaced Australia on the track, but were well beaten for third overall. Canada also saving their best until last to end the week on a high.
Thank you very much. It's been a really good week. All three of us have stayed strong all week, every day. We've been consistent, just keeping it together, keeping our heads screwed on, keeping the bikes in one piece and ourselves, and yeah, we've ended up at the top.
After suffering 2 retirements and finishing last a year ago, France's new generation returned for their second attempt and claimed the country's first podium in the Women's Trophy since 2017. But at the third attempt, it's an historic first title for Great Britain. Despite suffering their first defeat at the hands of Finland on day 5, Italy still had comfortably enough in hand to claim a second consecutive junior trophy success as they brought home their trio. Underlining what might have been, but for retirements, the USA, France and Sweden all saw their top men feature prominently in the final test. It was Albert Fontava who claimed the whole shot. He was bumped wide at the first turn, allowing through champion-elect Morgan Lesiado and American Austin Walton, who claimed a lead he would never surrender. Fontava was then picked off by Matteo Oliveira and Zachary Pichon. Australia's Kyron Bacon came through on lap 3. The fast-starting Spaniard was ultimately relegated to 9th. Front of the field, Lesiado remained in touch with leader Walton, but brought it home for second. Enrico Rinaldi making it safely home in 10th, and the celebrations then getting underway for the Italian junior trio in France. First and third for the US juniors, another reminder of what might have been for them. Overall, a dominant scratch win for Zachary Pichon. Kyron Bacon only just fails to displace Ronnie Kaitanen from second after making up a mammoth 38 seconds on the Finn in the final test. But Finland hold on comfortably ahead of Australia for second, behind champions Italy.
We had to manage all days to make good times, but don't risk too much. And I think we have been good making it. So I think we deserve this victory. I would like to say a big thank you to all the federation staff and to my teammates, because I think we make a good job.
The opening day's 3 retirements proved the only dropouts in the junior trophy that was a relatively straightforward affair once Australia had passed Great Britain for third behind Finland. A record 10th junior trophy for Italy, and their third in 4 years. The only podium position still up for grabs on the final day of competition was second in the World Trophy, with only 45 seconds between Spain and Italy and 4 riders from each to set their final times. One final bout between Josep Garcia and Andrea Verona, the top 2 performers in the enduro world at present. They were the first to show after a chaotic first turn that claimed both Josh Toth and Dante Oliveira from the American team. Caleb Russell then went down on his own, dropping himself outside of the top 10, compounding a thoroughly miserable week in all 3 trophies for the US. At the front, once clear of teammate Salvini, Andrea Verona picked off Josep Garcia for the race lead and, crucially in the scrap for second overall, Garcia came to grief whilst trying to recover. Great Britain's Nathan Watson played it safe with 4th, the team beaten on the day for the first time by Italy since the opener, all 4 riders making it home to claim an historic success. A narrow victory in the final moto for Andrea Verona, but with teammate Alex Salvini up in third, Italy finished fastest on the day and carved 45 seconds out of Spain to quite incredibly steal the runner-up ranking overall by less than a second. But a dream result for Great Britain, who didn't even field a team last year, but in 2022 have claimed their first World Trophy in almost 70 years.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is just a great day for us boys. We made history today. It's a very long time since GB won, and me and the boys have worked hard all week and worked really well as a team, and prepared well and just got the job done. So huge relief after the stress.
Consolation for Spain with third position and another scratch win for Josep Garcia. Their young team should continue to make progress. The 6 days' next destinations have already been confirmed. We'll head back to Argentina in 2023 and then Spain in 2024. But in the meanwhile, Team Great Britain can celebrate their first World Trophy success in a generation.
Je vais déclarer les 96 6 jours d'enduro ouverts. Merci, oui, Antoine.